Beautiful.
That was an excellent clap.
Thank you.
Best I've seen in hours.
Best clapper in the business.
Julian Shaw, welcome to Standard Deviation.
It's good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for coming.
So excited.
So, I don't know if you've listened to our show at all, but basically, I just want to say this because I feel like we're probably going to get some new listeners for this episode. This podcast is essentially me and my friend and roommate Kevin talking about just
Random stuff.
Random stuff.
Most of it's driven by listener questions, the occasional interview, stories, that kind of thing.
But like philosophical questions, current events, politics, it's all over the map. It's pretty tangential.
Yeah, I think the commonest theme is probably the effort to talk about difficult topics, whether that's intellectually difficult or personally difficult or whatever.
Yeah. And it's not something I try to keep incredibly separated from my work, but it's also not something I actively market on like my Ceara Lynch Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, but this episode I will because it is relevant to us. So I just kind of wanted to explain the podcast a minute for any new listeners that are listening. And then for the listeners we do have that don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself and talk about who the hell you are?
Oh my God, who the hell am I? Well, I guess people listening to this will know that I am the director of Use Me, which is my first feature film in which you star, and in which I also star. I am a filmmaker and an actor. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. I've made 2 feature-length documentaries, and people might have seen me pop up in stuff like Portlandia or the feature San Andreas or a bunch of short films over the years in festivals. So, yeah. Oh, and maybe even It's Time, which was a marriage equality advertisement I did, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, that's how I first knew who you were.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah, so years ago when you first approached me for this project, I knew who you were just based on that video.
That's so amazing. That little 2-minute clip honestly did more for my career than probably anything I'd done up until that point.
Yeah.
What was it? An advertisement? Or?
Yeah, it was an advertisement in Australia. This was before same-sex marriage was legalized. And, we made this little 2-minute short really in support of marriage equality, and I was the lead actor in it. We just banged this thing out in 48 hours, and it just went mega viral. It got,
I actually posted it on my Facebook before I knew who Julian was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how much it spread around.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. If anyone hasn't seen it, look it up. What would you look up? It's Time?
Yeah, I would just go onto YouTube and type in It's Time marriage equality. That should bring it up. I think it's got like 16 or 17 million views at this point. Madonna shared it. Stephen Fry shared it.
Shit.
Incredible, And this was, this was like in 2011, but it just showed me the power of short form content on the internet. And, hopefully it even did affect voters, which nothing else I've ever done has had any political impact, so maybe nothing else I ever do will. So it was amazing to be part of something that actually was part of real world change.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And you inadvertently became the poster boy for gay marriage equality.
Which I am thrilled to be the poster boy for that movement. I'm so glad it got legalized in Australia. I even got my own float in the Mardi Gras that year. It was crazy for a while. I would just be recognized every time I went out for a little while. And in fact, still to this day, I get recognized for it. So
wow,
it's crazy.
That's
really
cool.
Crazy, but super proud of it. It's a beautiful piece.
It really is. It was really well done, and it's just like makes you all misty-eyed by the end of it.
Oh,
I'll have to check that out afterwards.
Nice.
Cool. So we are doing this 2 days after announcing the premiere date for our new feature film.
Woohoo!
I'm so
Which
excited.
Is
Use Me. You just
no,
said
the
that.
premiere date.
Oh, sorry. June 2nd and 3rd.
Who's this guy? What?
It's June 2nd and 3rd at the Brooklyn Film Festival.
Very cool.
Yes. So excited.
That's 2019 for those of you listening from the future.
Yes.
Yeah. You need a time machine to watch it. Sorry about that. Sorry.
It's not going to be saved anywhere. So
yeah.
Jokes.
We're so excited. I mean, the festival's a really great fit. I mean, it's definitely one of the leading independent film festivals. They're really big on first and second time filmmakers, but they just love the movie. I had a good feeling that the festival program actually reached out really early and was like, listen, does this thing have a premiere yet? Because I love it. I want to be the guy to do it. Anytime you hear from them directly, it's always a good sign. Because normally you don't hear anything until you get the rejection letter.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
Which
promising.
we had a little bit of experience with.
We did have a bit, but on the other hand, and not to name names, but we actually were so close to an A-list festival It's not really cool to say which one, but, one of the Sundance, Toronto, Berlin, Venice, that kind
In
of
that
level.
vein, yeah.
We got pre-selected, so we were right on the cusp. And in fact, I wish I hadn't seen the letter, because the person who pre-selected it was like the most enthusiastic thing I'd ever seen about the film. And we were like, well, God, it's got to be a shoo-in. And then we didn't make it.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing.
But look, I got to be honest as well. I wasn't that surprised that we didn't make one of the absolute A-list festivals. Look, this is a movie that's made for less than $1 million. I know you're a superstar of femdom, Ceara. I know you have an amazing cult following, but you're not a...
I'm not Julia Roberts.
You're not Julia Roberts yet.
Oh,
okay.
You.
So and it's super hard if you don't have movie stars. You just look at Sundance, which I would love to be in one day. Don't get me wrong, but you're like, oh, okay, that's got James Franco, and Julia Roberts is in that. So that's what you're competing with. It's really hard. They're not independent,
right?
Yeah, that's stiff competition for sure.
Yeah, and then you look at things like Brooklyn. They're a little bit more like what Sundance used to be, where it's a discovery festival, edgier cinema. We just couldn't be happier. It's a great fit for us.
Yeah, I'm really stoked on Brooklyn. I feel so hipster. It's going to be dope.
Get your hipster on, girl.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be going there soon. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to a film festival. I might be able to make it to this one. I haven't decided yet.
Oh, you
I have to check
come.
my schedule. It would be pretty fucking cool. Is it like a all-day thing or like a nighttime thing or what?
Well, this thing goes for about a week. There's screenings all day. I mean, this festival's very intimate. They're not huge venues, but that's kind of the point of it. It's very much about interacting with the filmmakers, and we get to meet people. I mean, anyone who comes out will definitely get to hopefully meet and greet in person, which will be super cool. And look, they're fun. I got to tell you, I've been to some of the bigger ones. I often prefer the slightly smaller festivals, like Austin Film Festival, maybe not considered an A-list festival. That was one of the best festivals I ever went to. Byron Bay International Film Festival, also one of the best. So, I think this is going to be on that par.
Yeah, and I mean, it's in Williamsburg, so it's got to be pretty fucking hip, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be terminally hip. I don't know if I'm hip enough to go to it. I got to get my hair.
They're going to bar you at the door.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Flash my hipster card.
Right.
So we have a ton of questions that were submitted to us. Should we just dive right into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, man. Okay, here we go.
Are you ready for this?
I think I'm ready. I've known these questions are coming for a long time. This is the moment of truth. Just let's do it.
All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Okay.
Question number 1. Why did the movie take so long to make?
Great question. What I will say is that there's been two parallel experiences for me. One is the Kickstarter backers and the fans of you who are just like, is this thing even still getting made? Why is it taking so long?
And I just want to say, a lot of people think that the movie started at the Kickstarter. And really, that was about the halfway point. So anyone that's frustrated with how long it took, it feels twice as long to me.
I'm sorry, I sympathize.
No.
with you.
I'm not trying to complain or anything. These things take time. We don't have Avengers budget, So I don't think people realize how long it takes to make a movie. That's a big project.
That's exactly right. And the thing as well is, I think we did put forward a very polished trailer that we were thrilled with that Kickstarter in 2016. People thought we'd shot it and we were just getting post-production funds.
Right.
Honestly, I had probably shot, 10% of the movie at that point? Mm-hmm. If you look at how far it evolved, we made a whole new movie after that.
Really? And it was just you and me at first. We were just kind of shooting each other. You were coming back and forth from Australia. You hadn't moved to Portland yet. And so it was kind of us just exploring this movie. And then once the Kickstarter was funded, we had money to afford an actual film crew. And that's when we really busted it out.
That's exactly right. And, just there's a little bit maybe inside baseball, but, I think people are interested in the behind the scenes. Yes, we did the Kickstarter to raise funds. It was also a proof of concept. It was testing the market. I have this amazing producer from Australia, Jonathan Green, who has been instrumental in this film getting made. He kind of wanted me to do a Kickstarter because he was like, let's see if this thing gets traction. Because I don't know how much money I want to put into this thing if there's not an audience for it.
Yeah, it's a good market test, really.
It really is. I mean, it's a brutal way to do it, but we found out, hey, there was an enthusiastic audience.
If it makes you feel any better with the timeline, I once worked on an independent film for 10 years and never finished it. So
very common. And here's another stat for you. In terms of Australian feature films, 7 years is the average time to make it. From conception through to it being in a festival.
Damn.
So I was going to say, on the other hand, you have these people like Kickstarter backers saying, where's the movie? But all my friends who I went to film school with are like, damn, have you already shot it? That was so fast. How are you doing it so fast? So, look, I've made 2 documentaries before. They both took 4 years. About 4 years is pretty standard, unless you're a studio movie and you've got $150 million ready to go.
Damn, I've thought about trying to make documentaries, and after you said that, I'm out. No way. I can't put 4
It's a
years
lot of
in.
work.
Yeah,
You gotta love
That's
it.
intense.
Yeah.
All right, question 2. Julian, be honest, mate. Did you find Ceara Lynch through a clip site while looking for some prime humiliation porn, and then became fascinated / obsessed like the rest of us? Hashtag tell the truth, man.
Yes.
Got it. I knew it. That was my question.
It was YouTube,
No, I'm just
actually, and it was a pirated clip.
Oh, it wasn't Pornhub?
It wasn't Pornhub. I'm not
Not that
sure
matters.
what I was searching for, but
Okay. All right, we'll go with that.
Let's just say it was late at night. I was on the
lonely.
internet looking for some kicks. But what I will say is this. I thought you were beautiful. I thought you were hot. Which is great. But then I went to your website, and then I was like, there's a real intelligence to this whole thing. There's this amazing command of social media. There's a real voice, and there's like this incredible persona you've created, Ceara Lynch, which is kind of like performance art. And then I discovered these fetishes I actually didn't know about. And I'm pretty well versed in that stuff, but there was some...
I hear about new ones all the time.
Right.
Really.
So that blew my mind. And in terms of wanting to work with you, I mean, even though I say you are hot and beautiful, well, there's a lot of hot and beautiful men and women on the internet. That's not enough. There was something about you. I just got this good feeling. Like you could do this. You could act. You could perform. There's something there. And it was just a gut feeling that I trusted.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that she's so nice, It's a bummer. Oh, right. Sorry. No, she's such a bitch.
It's a
God,
boner
I
killer.
hate her.
Yeah.
All right. Question 3. Why did you decide to make this as a fictional thriller instead of a reality-based documentary?
I have an answer to that, and you might have a slightly different one. I believe that Julian wanted to do a pure documentary about me at first, and so he kind of followed me around, and I showed him my life, and he realized that my life is very happy and therefore boring, and so there wasn't a story there.
You're way too functional for a feature documentary.
Is that fair?
I couldn't put it better myself.
Just like, oh, look, here are the cats. Here are the chickens.
Yeah.
Okay, she's going to bed now.
Here's my dad. He loves me.
Right. You were just way too well adjusted.
Now she's reading a book. Great.
And the truth is, it's not my first rodeo. I'd made 2 documentaries before, and I was like, well, this isn't really going to cut it. The fact that she's a nice person and she's very professional and hardworking, who gives a shit? Yeah. That's not a story.
There's no plot there.
Right.
Okay, next question. By the way, thanks to everyone who submitted these via Twitter and Instagram. They're very helpful. So,
Great questions.
Yeah. Next one is talk about your creative process. And I guess this could be for both of you, but since you're the primary creator, over to you.
I kind of want to hear it from your point of view. That would be more interesting to me.
Okay. Well, when Julian first contacted me, he actually proposed filming me for a docu-series he was filming called Me Incorporated, and it was about entrepreneurs. So that's how it all started, and I thought it was just going to be a one-off episode, which I've done stuff like that in the past. And I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. He flew out to Portland, again, followed me around, thought there was something more there, kind of proposed the idea of maybe doing a full documentary. And then, of course, that turned into, oh, she's kind of boring. So so then that's where the idea of having a fictional storyline woven within a documentary came about. And so all that was pretty early on. And meanwhile, the two of us were just kind of filming each other, just doing little things, like having little, rather than reading from like a script, like a traditional actor would, we would film each other and just like propose a scenario and just kind of go with it. And it was just kind of natural and improvised and just do little stuff like that. And Julian had written various, they're called treatments, basically scripts.
Yeah, like a 20-page treatment.
Yeah, and they're just scripts. And one thing I learned is that when you do this, you tend to do like 50 of them or something. I just kind of pulled that number out of my ass, but
no, for sure.
I remember the first one you sent me. I was like, "Oh, really? This is where this is going?" I don't know. I didn't really like the first one, and you're like, "Well, this is just the first treatment." And I was like, "Okay." And yeah, sure enough, like you developed it, you rewrote it, you changed parts, and even when we really buckled down and started filming something, things would change, and we'd shoot like kind of alternate scenes. And up until the very end, it was like evolving until we, got the final product.
Yeah, no, I couldn't put it better myself. It was kind of a documentary production methodology in that we shot it in blocks. I mean, normally with a feature film, you're like, okay, we got an 8-week shoot or a 10-week shoot, and that's it. With this, because we were the leads and we were playing ourselves, and because I had moved to Portland, we could add a scene if we needed it.
Right.
You know, and in fact, if I wasn't, you know, the guy in the movie, we couldn't have done stuff like I was in the editing room thinking, man, I need a line. Oh, I could do that. I could do that, you know. But you're right. Look, the process is super long. I mean, yeah, you look back on the first treatment, it was probably, oh, God, I don't know, you know. But you just have to go through it. It's normally like draft 10, it starts to get good.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and this was really spread out, too. Like I said before, you were living in Australia, so the first few years, you would come out maybe just a few times a year, and you would just shoot things. And then it wasn't until we got the Kickstarter funded and then we had a film crew that we were able to film some of the bigger scenes that, you know, took more people than just the two of us and our dinky cameras. Mm-hmm. And that's when the process really kind of started, it really started rolling. But even then it was like just every couple weeks or so we'd film a chunk of something. So from my point of view, like it wasn't something that ever took over my life. I was still able to
that
travel.
must be nice.
Yeah, I was still able to travel, still able to work. You, on the other hand, are the director, writer, editor, everything. So
actor, yeah. No, I mean, it's completely consumed my life for 3 years. By the way, the happiest 3 years of my life. In all seriousness, I've never been so happy. But no, you're right. There really was before Kickstarter and after Kickstarter. Kickstarter gave it a momentum. You know, we got some funds, which was great, which helped bolster the budget. Gave us a shot in the arm like, okay, people actually want to see this movie. But, you know, as you said, maybe people didn't know about this. I was living in Australia. Mm-hmm. I had to figure out how to get a damn American visa, which I got to tell you is not easy. I ended up getting a green card. I had to be here full-time working on this to make this shit happen. So there was some big stuff going on behind the scenes that we didn't necessarily tell people, but, you know, a lot of logistical hurdles. Mm-hmm. I'd never made a movie in America before. It was a big learning experience, you know?
So in terms of the actual writing, I'm curious, do you have like a process, or do you work from inspiration, or do you have like a routine, or what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just... There's a cat coming at me.
Cat
That's
talk.
why, you know, I'm not deep in thought.
Yeah, those of us that are watching the video can probably see this.
Hi, Kimiko.
Her eyes are just so mesmerizing.
Yeah.
You know, look, it started with me smoking a joint on a beach in Jervis Bay in Australia.
So many great things start that way.
Right.
I mean, not always on that particular beach, but...
Right. And just asking myself these questions like, well, why does someone want to have their life ruined by a beautiful woman?
You know, it just occurred to me, I don't think we've even said what this movie is about. So for those of you listening, do you want to just give a quick synopsis?
Absolutely. Well, the official synopsis is an ambitious documentary maker, which is me, discovers the darkest parts of himself when he turns his camera on a beautiful woman who humiliates men for money. That's Ceara.
That's
Nice.
me.
That's a good summary.
We play ourselves in the movie. So I'm Julian, she's Ceara. And, you know, it's about me moving to the States to make this documentary about this elite humiliatrix. Maybe catch a little bit of feelings in the process. Maybe there's a little bit of kind of, you know, mutual manipulation going on.
Are there aliens? That's what everyone wants to know.
There are aliens.
Okay, cool.
Well, he is an illegal alien.
I'm an illegal alien.
wow.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah. So I'm the
You weren't
alien.
even lying.
Yeah, so
That's
it's science
amazing.
fiction, you know.
Right, sure.
No, but essentially, the plot kind of really kicks into gear when, you know, as I'm delving deeper making the documentary, I discover that Ceara, you know, isn't exactly who she portrays herself to be. And that actually maybe it's not all as ethical as it seems. Maybe she's taking advantage of people.
Cool.
Maybe I am.
That's just
Maybe
enough
I do.
to intrigue. So back to your writing process. There you are, stoned on a beach.
Stoned on a beach. So, you know, there was a lot of that, a lot of just talking into my voice recorder endlessly, coming up with ideas. And then I do these writing trips. You know, I have this like fetish for shitty motels.
I actually love shitty motels too, strangely enough. That's an odd one. I wouldn't call it a fetish, Julian.
Okay.
But
Weird.
Well, look who's talking.
you're in polite company here. No, you're not.
So here's the deal as well. I mean, it's funny you say how improvised it was. Actually, my producer made me write a full 100-page script. Because he was like, look, and this is Jonathan Green, amazing producer. it sucked. It really sucked for me because I was like, dude, this thing's going to be very improvised, and and Ceara might not even get a script, but she'll, like that's going to be a bit of process. He was like, I get it, but you have to write an industry standard Hollywood script before I give you a cent.
Sort of like a framework to work.
A framework,
yeah.
And you know what? It was the best thing. It was so hard. It really sucked. But it was necessary because then you have a strong scaffolding, and then you can improvise around that,
right?
But you're on solid footing. So that was the process.
Yeah, it's interesting because he did write a script, but I didn't memorize any lines because I read it over, and there would be parts where I'm like, I wouldn't say it like that,
Exactly. What a diva! Yeah. It's called acting, dummy.
Well, I'm playing myself, and so
yeah,
and he was smart. He was like, well, how about, we just put ourselves in, like, this is the goal of the scene, and we'll go with it from there and just talk how you talk. And that worked really well for me.
And we tried it. We tried reading scripted scenes and stuff like that. And we found a process for you. And by the way, I mean, she is phenomenal in the film. I'm not just saying that because I'm the director, but, we did audience testing for this movie. Her performance got unbelievable numbers.
I saw it, and she was amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like a lot of pre-work went into that, and we found, okay, what is your comfort zone? What's your sweet spot? And we did kind of work it to you, and I think we found a really great creative shorthand. And, honestly, I mean, your performance in this, not to take any credit for it, but it's like the proudest directing moment of my career because she's so good in it, and I knew you could act. Right, I could see the potential, but you're not a trained actor. I normally work with people who went to drama school. They've been doing it for 20 years, and
I just tell guys to jerk off.
Exactly.
It's not even hard to do.
No.
Really.
They're jerking off already.
Anyway.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
No one has ever said no to that.
No.
So, was this your first time writing a fiction project?
It was, and I'd made some short films. I went to film school in Australia. There's a national film school, AFTRS it's called, Australian Film, Television, Radio School. So I really paid my dues. I did years of all that stuff. I made a ton of short films. But yeah, this is the first feature-length non-fiction movie.
Nice. Very cool.
Fiction movie, I should say.
Gotcha. All right. Next question. Have you received criticism for changing the movie from what at first looked like a pure documentary to a fictionalized docu-thriller?
Love this question. Ceara, you were very worried about how people might respond to the new trailer. Tell me about that.
That was my biggest fear. And I had been thinking about it leading up to, because we knew for, about a week or so about the Brooklyn premiere date. So I was anticipating, our announcement and this new trailer that was coming out. And I had just been hearing things here and there online when people would talk about it, and some people seemed like they're under the impression that it was a pure documentary. So I was really worried that my audience, at least, would be really blindsided, especially the people who had been following the Kickstarter or following since the Kickstarter. And to my surprise, nothing. Everyone seems really excited about it. I saw maybe one comment on Twitter. Someone was just like, oh, this wasn't what I thought. But it wasn't even negative. It was just kind of matter of fact.
You know what I'll bet makes it more palatable is that this is so innovative. It's such a new concept. It's almost like a new film format. So, like if you said it was going to be a documentary and then it turned into just a purely feature film, people might be more disappointed. But it's kind of that middle ground. So it's like, oh, wow, I accidentally became part of something original.
No,
so cool.
I love that you say that. I appreciate it. Look, people can decide how good the movie is, but I will say I haven't seen anything like this before.
No, I was pleasantly surprised about that.
Yeah, so I watched the version. I think it might have been recut since I saw it, but months ago I saw it and loved it, and I found it very surreal because I was sitting on the couch with Ceara watching it, and I know her personally, and there were times, in fact, most of the movie where I couldn't tell what was real, and like I should know what's real. And in the end, she told me some stuff that I just assumed was real that wasn't. Like, I mean, it's amazing what you pulled off.
Unbelievable. Well, I appreciate that so much. And it's funny, like the hashtag on our poster is what is real.
It fits.
And that's kind of the thing. And what I will say as well is it's not 1999 anymore. You can't really do the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
I didn't want to come out ever and try to say to people, hey, I'm making this documentary about Ceara, and then have this gotcha thing.
Right.
Because everybody figures out it's a mockumentary or a pseudo-documentary, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, to be fair, though, we did watch, like, in the beginning process, we did watch a lot of films that were kind of inspired by this. And one of them was Catfish.
Yeah, well,
and that was an example of one where they never really were clear of whether it was real or not. It seems a little too ridiculous to be real, but they seem to pull that off pretty well.
Amazing movie. Well, they claim that's a pure documentary.
Do
though.
they?
They do. I guess what I'm trying to say is I never wanted to trick people.
Yeah.
And
you don't want to treat your audience like they're stupid.
No, the audience is so damn smart. You cannot trick people anymore.
Yeah.
And one other film we did look at, I want to say, this is kind of important. Did you ever see I'm Still Here? It was with Joaquin Phoenix.
It was fucking brilliant.
It was a great movie.
Yeah.
I really liked it, really strong. But it was about him becoming a rapper.
Right.
You know? And the thing was, even though the movie was super strong, by the time it came out, people were like, well, hang on, this isn't a documentary. You tricked us. He wasn't really trying to become a rapper. This is performance art. Fuck you.
Yeah, I didn't realize the sentiment turned like that.
It did a little bit. Maybe I'm exaggerating for effect, but there was a little bit of like, well, you tricked us. And I was just like, that's not a good way to go. I don't want people to think I'm making a doco just to trick them. I was actually very transparent. If you look at the Kickstarter trailer, I actually say in it, this is not a documentary. And it was really important to me to get that in early. There was even like a frequently asked questions section. And, and it said, is this a pseudo documentary? And I said right there, this film, it's a hybrid, basically. It has elements of fiction and nonfiction. And that's the appeal of it. It's a blend.
Yeah. I think, I thought that people might have been confused because the original trailer looks more like a real documentary than the latest trailer.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, the newer trailer has a totally different feel, but I think definitely reflects the final product.
And look, let's just go there. Like, you weren't so sure about the new trailer, right?
Yeah, I'm not too wild about it. It feels a little too mainstream, a little too, I don't know. It's hard for me to put myself out of the situation and think about what my opinion would be if I weren't so involved in it. But I feel like I would have been more drawn to the first trailer than the second, just because it looked like something so much more kind of unique and the sort of thing that I like to watch. But then again, I'm so picky when it comes to films. So
That's
I'm
true.
not the best.
No, but I will say,
be a judge.
My taste is I'm a bit more drawn to our Kickstarter trailer as well. It's a little bit more suggestive, a little bit more atmospheric. But I got to say, now that I've kind of spent a few years going to Hollywood and just seeing how much you have to punch people in the face, like there is something to be said for the style of trailer we've just put out, which is a lot more mainstream, a lot more direct, but it seems to be impactful, and it speaks to an audience who might not know who the fuck either of us are, which is critical at this point.
I have a kind of a difficult relationship with trailers. I'm always so critical of them. I just feel like any trailer that's more than 11 seconds is just pushing it,
I hear you.
But I will say that your point about the fact that you have to really drive home the points and the themes, because it's written for the average viewer and you never know what they're going to catch, so it kind of makes sense. I just like to skip trailers whenever I can, personally. I'll watch the beginning and I'm like, okay, it doesn't look terrible, I'll watch the movie now.
I hear you. And look, I hope that doesn't sound in any way condescending, like, oh, you're trying to appeal to the average punter, but it's just literally like, you're watching it at 11 o'clock, you might have just been looking at porn and something comes up on your phone and, oh, what's this shit? Like, that's the point of view people are already in.
Yeah.
So you've got seconds to tell them, what's this about? What bad thing happens to the character? What am I kind of going to see? It's really that direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted to go beyond just my audience, because my audience would want to see it anyways. We wanted, just, people who have no idea about this world or even care about it to be interested in the film. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it achieved that for sure. Next question. Why did you change the name, and were there other titles you thought of before landing on Use Me?
Oh, it was a long process. We found out that there was this indie horror movie called Ruin Me, which came out in 2017.
Yeah, it came
right
out
after.
pretty recently.
Man, what are the odds?
Yeah, I don't know how they found that title, but good luck to them. No, really, and I'm sure
we could speculate.
No, maybe they had it for years. I really don't know. I wish them all the best. And we for a while we were like, no, we're just going to keep it. There can be two movies called Ruin Me. You talk to enough people, you talk to enough executives, you talk to enough distributors, you realize, you know what? Do not put that confusion in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
maybe
just
if it
don't
was
need
like
that.
a 20-year-old movie.
Right.
But yeah, they're so close together. But as far as other titles, we went through a lot.
Ooh, there was a long list. Do you remember any? I could bang out the 4-page document.
I remember we tried Ruined.
Yeah, which was just, it worked, but it was a little bit generic somehow. It just didn't quite...
Well, yeah, Use Me and Ruin Me both have a strong like action feel to them. They're both direct and they're immediately a little off-putting. And Ruined is more like, yeah, it could be anything really. It could go any direction.
I'm partial to Ruin Me. I understand we had to, the reasons we had to change it. But Use Me also works. It works on, like, if you watch the movie, it definitely works on a lot of different layers.
I have to say I've done a total 180 because I was the guy saying, "Nope, we're calling it Ruin Me. Fuck the other movie. We're just going ahead." I didn't want to lose it, and now I actually prefer Use Me.
Do you?
I really actually think it's a better title. When you see the film, that title works in so many different ways. I mean, one of the themes in the film is addiction, and even just the idea of using. I was kind of like, why didn't I think of that title earlier?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. People who knew it as Ruin Me, of course they're always going to have a preference for that. But I've really noticed with a new audience, people who've never heard of the film, Use Me does great. And we tested it, and it was great. The numbers were great. So, we love it now.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, next question. Will there be many or any other DOMs featured in the film? And if so, who?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few cameos.
I gotta be honest, it's been several months since I've seen it, so I actually forget who makes the final cut.
And I've tried not to use people's real names here. I'm kind of struggling a bit. I want to use the stage names. Well,
Right.
I mean, Mandy Flores.
Right, okay.
Ellie
Idol.
Ellie Idol pops up in there.
Yes.
A little bit of Goddess Jessica, who again, I don't want to ruin her career, but such a sweet person. I'm very supportive of the film. I know, right?
Yeah, we love Jessica.
We love Jessica.
She's awesome.
I wish she was in it more, but she pops up in there. Meggers is in there.
Jasmine Mendez.
Shauna. Goddess Shauna.
Does Snow make the cut?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Domina Snow. Alexandra Snow. She gets a big laugh every time, actually.
Really?
She's got a great bit just talking shit about you.
No.
It was so natural and believable.
Yeah, it's way too natural for her.
Surprise.
It's the most convincing part of the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Cool. All right, next question. Julian, did you discover any fetishes over the course of the movie that you didn't know you had?
That I didn't know I had. Not real. Look, I think, male sexuality is pretty fixed. I think you kind of know.
You're a grown-ass man. You know what you're
Yeah,
like.
I've known what I'm into for a long time. What I would just say is, financial domination is not one of my fetishes, which I think is good, because also you don't want to make a movie. It's a little bit creepy if you're making a movie about your own fetish.
Sure,
what I will say is I do have some fetishes that allow me to really understand the psychology of the characters in this film without necessarily being the thing that pushes my buttons. So I can wrap my head around it, but I'm not too close to it.
Nice. I was hoping that would be more scandalous, but I'll take the truth. That works. All right, next one. How was it working with Joe Reitman?
Can you guess who submitted this question?
Was it Joe Reitman?
Yes.
He is very good at self-promotion.
That makes me feel better because I don't know who that is. So it's like, am I out of the loop or what?
So should we say who he is?
Joe's amazing. Yeah,
he
no.
He was awesome.
I mean, if you look up his IMDb, this guy is, he's going to go down as a legendary, character actor in American cinema, if he isn't already. He's been in all of the, Jay and Silent Bob movies. He was just in New Orleans shooting.
He was in Clueless.
That's
how I like to introduce him. I was like, this is Joe Reitman. He was in Clueless.
It's a good intro.
He had the smallest part, but that's my favorite credit.
Dude, just to be in Clueless. Wow. Yeah. I mean, Lady in the Water. But people more recently would know him. He was in
Happy?
Happy, the sci-fi show.
That's on right now.
And he's Creepy Ed in The Punisher, which is a Marvel show. So he's got a real hardcore cult following. But it's funny, I just met him as a friend. He was kind of the first friend that I made when I kind of moved to America, and then I was like, oh my God, I've got this brilliant idea. I'm going to cast Joe as this creepy weird guy. No one's ever thought of that, and now I realize that's all he does. He's been doing it for 20 years, so I'm not that fucking original. But he's a great actor. We were lucky to have him.
Yeah, he was great to work with. He's really friendly, really easy. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, and he's one of my best friends now. He's really. It's funny. He's been sober 25 years, which is super inspiring. Wow. He's a Patriots fan, and now here I am. I've got a Julian Edelman jersey. I'm a Patriots fan. I haven't had a drink in 9 months. He's very. I don't know. There's something. He's got a great energy, and it's kind of rubbed off on me.
He's almost your mentor. It sounds like.
Kinda. Yeah.
How was it working with each other?
Shit.
Yeah, I would imagine. This girl is just the worst.
Awful. Yeah. Hard to look at.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
No, you got to answer that for real. That was a listener question, by the way. I know I made it sound natural, but I don't care. Jokes.
It was a cakewalk. Julian's super easy to work with. I have no complaints.
Yeah,
honestly.
Julian, I gotta say, I don't know you all that well, but we've hung out a few times, and you almost seem like a character yourself. You're just like one of the most pleasant people. Like, if I had to work with somebody, especially in a movie, because movies are fucking stressful. They're not. I mean, they're fun, but they're also not fun. So I can imagine that your steady hand probably had a lot to do with the quality of the film.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, like I said, I've been living and breathing it for 3 years. I mean, when you're directing it, writing it, making it happen, it's a full-time job. But people do feed off your energy. So even if you're riddled with anxiety, you can't necessarily portray that. You know, you're like the captain of the ship. People are looking to you like, is this guy freaking out? Can I fucking trust this guy? Should it?
Yeah.
So that's important. But I've been doing it a while now, and I kind of know the process. And I think I could just reassure you, like even early on, maybe if things weren't going great, it's like, look, just keep going. The first draft of anything is never amazing.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get there,
Yeah. I got to say, you've always had a positive attitude and not in like, a phony sort of way or anything like that. And so it was really easy to work with you.
Did you have any surprises working with her or anything difficult about her style or process? Is she a diva? That's what everyone wants to know. Did she demand a bathtub full of Evian water on set every day?
That was in your rider. I do remember that.
Well,
I only ever demand Fiji baths personally.
Oh, really?
I like the minerals. Yeah.
We just had to find our own shorthand. Like I would say, I didn't direct you like I would someone who's a professional actor, which is just common sense because it's, maybe it's a kind of different language you would use or whatever. But once we found that, it was easy. You were killing it, you know.
That reminds me, I remember I was watching, I think it was Inside the Actors Studio, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying that the best direction he ever got was he had a director who the only notes they would give is, I think it was either do more or do less.
That's a big thing I learned at film school. Directors talk way too much.
Yeah.
And, I'm an actor myself, and you realize that when a director comes at you and tells you 5 or 6 things, by the time they get to 6, you've already forgotten the first 2.
Yeah.
So it's like if you can give a direction in one word, that's the best direction.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you mentioned that, you were really good about that. Like any feedback you'd give me, it was always just really simple and clear. Or you would even just be like, hey, do it like this. And then you'd actually do it yourself. And I'd be like, okay. And
which is, and they tell you at film school, don't ever give an actor a line reading.
Yeah.
Never tell them. Bullshit.
I agree.
There
it's
are no
bullshit.
rules. Sometimes it's called for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just whatever works, dude.
I watch stuff all the time where there's like one line that should have been read to the actor because you can tell they're not quite getting it. Like they don't understand or the enunciation is slightly off. There's something off with it. And it's probably just because the director didn't want to do a reading.
100%. And look, as an actor myself, I would welcome that. I'm not precious.
Yeah.
Like, I got to tell you, like the hardest thing in this process was directing myself. Like to get a decent performance when you're acting and direct, it is super tough. It is so much nicer to have a director manipulating you, literally puppeteering you. I love that. I love to be completely just used.
Did you have to like ask people for feedback about your performance, or did you judge it yourself? Or?
Absolutely, no, for sure. And there's no ego in it. It's God, that take was a bit of a stinker. Better go again. I had this amazing co-producer, AJ Gordon, incredible, Loaded Image Entertainment. He was my Portland producer. He was incredible. I turn to him all the time, and the whole thing with directing yourself is you don't do it on the day. You did it days before. You have written the notes about what you need to get from your lead actor. It just happens to be you. You've already decided. And you tell your cinematographer, you tell your producer, you tell your first AD, this movie's not going to cut unless I get these things. And you give them a piece of paper and you say, if I'm not doing that on the day, make me go again till I get it. You have to like step back a little bit. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting in an edit suite months or years later. And if your leading man is doing a shitty job, you're going to hate him. And I just don't want to be in that situation, even if I am that leading man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you ever like film yourself for rehearsal? Just like record yourself, play it back? Yeah.
I mean, it's not always helpful to necessarily look at the end product because, you're always trying to connect to some real emotion when you're acting. And it can get a bit phony if you're like, well, if I do this, it's going to look a certain way. It's never my best stuff when I do that. But absolutely. And, my character's always filming himself. So a lot of my process was actually doing video diaries and
that makes sense.
Getting into the head of Julian.
I was just thinking about that one scene you filmed yourself privately.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. God, do I want to put this on the internet? Let's just say I did some character research to find out what a certain experience would be like because I wanted my facial expressions to be authentic. Now, I'm not going to tell you what scene it is, But when you see the movie, you might be able to figure it out.
It's a good
Nice.
answer.
Thanks.
All right. Next question. Did you find the process of getting the film into a festival frustrating? And we kind of talked about that a little bit. Why don't we talk about the frustration angle?
I'm beyond like frustration. That sounded bad. I mean, I haven't felt frustrated in this process. I've gotten very much used to waiting. I learned very quickly that things take much longer than you can anticipate. So even when you would be like, oh, hey, we'll probably have this done by next month, I'd be like, all right, so like in 4 months. So the festival process, I was getting like a little antsy. I really wanted us to just have a premiere date. Like the movie had been done for so long. But that mostly came from other people. I got frustrated with people constantly asking me, when is it going to come out? When is it going to come out? And that's good because people are excited. They want to know. So I'm not totally complaining there. But it was frustrating that I didn't have an answer for them. But yeah, no, I'm really happy with Brooklyn. It was, just kind of waiting around till something happened, but I knew it would. So in a way, it was exciting because it was just prolonged anticipation for a good thing.
Yeah, we had faith it was coming. I agree it was tough having people asking you. But, I'm beyond grateful that people are that excited to see the finished product. I mean, even if someone's a little bit snarky, like, dude, what's happening with this film? I'm just like, thank you for your enthusiasm. The fact that you're so passionate about seeing it is awesome.
Yeah.
Again, I've gone through this thing before, and it's like funny. My first documentary, we put it in a bunch of festivals and just got nothing. We got no traction. And it was at the point where, I think my producer was like, look, we tried film festivals and it didn't work. It was like, this thing's done. And then it got into Berlin, which is one of the top 5 festivals in the world. And, we'd been rejected by quote unquote lesser festivals. So what I've learned is you just have to put it into a bunch. You don't know who that programmer is. You do not know who's watching your movie. You just got to have faith that eventually it'll connect with someone.
Yeah, and one thing people, I don't think understood, I didn't understand this until you explained it to me, is when you submit to a bunch of festivals, they happen at various times throughout the year, and anyone that will accept you wants to have the world premiere. Mm-hmm. So that's why our premiere date was so up in the air, because it depended on who was going to accept us and whether or not we were going to give them the world premiere.
Absolutely, and they're not quick telling you. You can submit to a festival, you hear back 5 months later. That's a pretty common timeline.
Damn.
Yeah.
You know what you were describing with submitting to lots of places that rejected you and then getting in at a place that's more elite. It kind of reminded me of a lot of writers talking about publishing manuscripts. Where, like, I remember hearing about James Patterson, his first novel. I can't remember what it was called, but he submitted it like 26 times, and it was just flatly rejected. And then when it was published, it won the Edgar Award for Best Mystery in America, and he's the #1 author in the world now, and it took him 26 attempts before anybody would even acknowledge it. And it's something you just hear over and over with creative work. You just got to keep pushing it out there till it catches.
Yeah.
I love that. It's
encouraging.
so inspiring. And you talk about positive thinking or whatever, and I do embody that. I totally believe in manifestation. You have to believe, and you're swimming through no's to get towards that one yes.
Yeah.
And by this point, you just do the numbers as well. It's like with acting, I probably do 50 auditions, then I book one. With festivals, maybe you put it in 20 and you get one. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, makes sense. It's encouraging. Next question. Ceara comes across like a villain. Do you think people will confuse Ceara from the movie with the real Ceara?
This is a funny question because what is the real Ceara? Like, Ceara is already an alter ego of mine. So
yeah.
So we're comparing almost two somewhat fictionalized personas.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
And also the Ceara Lynch online is, I'm not exactly a saint.
Right. It's already exactly. Well, then
I think it fits well.
I will take this listener question and change it. Do you think, either of you think, that you as a person will be confused with your character as a villain? Since it does, the film, it really does blur the lines. Mm-hmm. So
Maybe.
All right.
I'm okay with that if it is. I don't know. I don't want someone to get really mad at me and start stalking me. But
it reminds me of the actor who plays Joffrey on Game of Thrones gets harassed in public for being such an asshole, and he's like, it's a character.
I will say I don't think by the end of the film you'll feel that way. But look, let's also be realistic here. Obviously, I'm a very sex positive person. I actually love this industry and female domination. I'm all for all that stuff. Some people are not. Some people would think, hey, she's taking advantage of men who have mental problems. Now, to me, that's not the case, but like this is going to be controversial. Anytime your work is exposed to a more mainstream audience, people have pretty intense opinions. We can't really control that. People are just going to bring their own baggage to it.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
and I mean
that's fine.
Yeah.
And really, if people do take that association with you personally, then it's kind of a compliment. In fact, back to the Joffrey actor, I can't remember his name, sorry guy, but I actually heard that George Martin, the author, wrote him a letter when he heard about that, complimenting him. He's like, you did good, because Joffrey is supposed to be the biggest cunt in the world.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the fact that strangers hate you, that's a compliment, really.
Yeah.
Exactly. But look, I think the film's going to start debate. That's what we always wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
Gets people talking.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely an intriguing topic that most, or I don't know about most, but a lot of people will be unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with.
But just one other thing I want to say is like what you do, Ceara, in order to truly get turned on, to have the most unbelievable orgasm, your clients, there's got to be a part of their brain that thinks this is real. She really actually is evil, or she really is manipulating me or ruining me. She really is that ruthless and cruel. Now, you enter into this kind of contract where you're play acting. You've given her some money. There's sort of some boundaries to it. But I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's just that little part of their brain that, you want it to be authentic.
Right.
It's like, why is like authentic amateur porn one of the most popular genres? It's because we are craving authenticity. We live in a fake-ass world.
Yeah.
Instagram is face-tuned and nothing's real in your feed. We just want anything real. So I think people are drawn to authenticity. And I have to say, I think that Ceara Lynch as a character must draw on a real part of yourself.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought of it similarly to how stand-up comedians talk about their stage persona. Like a lot of them have like them, the real them, and then who they are on stage. And it's more of an exaggerated version of themselves. So yeah, it's more of a persona or kind of a little bit of an alter ego. It's not completely separate from who I am. I'm just not that good of an actress to do that. So there's a lot of overlap for sure.
And that's the whole thing. It's the blurring of lines. And as you very well articulated, that's kind of the appeal of this film. Like, where does the fiction begin and the reality end? And it's up to the audience to interpret that.
Yeah. I keep thinking about, it's still surprising that it felt so surreal watching it. Because again, like, we're really good friends, and I couldn't tell while watching it with her, like, what of this is real.
I will say one other funny thing on that note. So we did this like audience test screening, like I said. So you get this report of hundreds of people giving their feedback on the movie, brutally honest. And it was funny, like some people would say, well, this bit was clearly, scripted or whatever. And they were talking about a part that was absolutely real. There was documentary.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
And then there was another part they were like, I really liked the documentary parts, the pure documentary, like this bit and this bit. And I was like, dude, that was
not real.
That was scripted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for me, it might even be more surreal because, like, if I didn't know anything about her as a person, then watching it, I might assume all of it's fake, or only 10% of it's real. Or
Yeah, I remember specifically after we watched it, there was one scene, and I'm telling a story, and you're like, wow, you never told me that. And I was like, oh, it didn't really happen. And you're like, what? Like, you were genuinely shocked.
Yeah, that messed with my head a little bit. Yeah.
My executive producer, Mark Lazarus, amazing guy, he came on, after we'd already been in production. He saw some of it. He thought she was an actor originally. I mean, he didn't know that it was all real. And frankly, he didn't give a shit. And that was really good for us to hear. He was like, listen, just tell a great story that emotionally connects to the audience. Doesn't really matter how real or not it is. Just are you telling a good, compelling story? And we kind of lived by that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I pay attention a lot to actors. I did a little independent acting in that movie I mentioned before. Nothing that was ever released or anything. So I've thought about the craft, and since then I pay attention a lot to performances, and I gotta say, it really is a standout performance. And I won't go on and on about it because
No, go on.
Okay. I was gonna say you might get uncomfortable, but no, I forgot who I'm talking to.
Exactly.
All right, next question. How can you make a film about this fetish without demeaning or exoticizing the men who take part in it?
Exoticizing?
Yeah, that's what I said too when I first read this.
Is that a word?
It is. So
did Donald Trump write this question?
So I think
I think he means like otherizing.
Yeah, so like there's the tendency to turn something into a caricature. So like the men who are into humiliation, to kind of treat them as just like a two-dimensional version of that person.
I see what you mean. Well, I don't view it that way, and I think, frankly, the film's imbued with that. I think you can feel my perspective, that I'm actually coming to this world with a lot of affection and an understanding of it and some personal experience, frankly. So,
we brought real like clients of mine too. We interviewed them and had them tell their own story. So, I think that helped with it.
That's exactly right.
And I mean, at the end of the day, because these guys do have unusual fetishes, like people are going to have their judgments, you know, like we just tried to present them, you know, as fairly as possible. And that's all you can do. The rest is up to other people.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the discussion is around the fetish element, because I'm sure that's going to spark conversations that have nothing to do with the film. I'm sure conversation threads will quickly turn into like, is this ethical? How many people are like this? Who has these fetishes? You know, I'm really curious to see where that goes, because
me too.
I like seeing when underbellies of society are flipped around and suddenly people become aware of something they didn't know about.
And that brings up something that I've been kind of nervous about ever since this show Bonding came out on Netflix. It sparked like kind of a polarizing conversation. I liked it. Me and Kevin watched it. We thought it was really fun and cute, and you know, there were some weak parts, but overall we enjoyed it.
I'll just interject. I do have some criticisms that I think are non-trivial, but overall I'll keep watching it.
Right. So and a lot of my friends who work as professional dominatrixes really hated it. And their criticisms basically were that they didn't fairly represent BDSM, that sort of thing. And, you know, they should have talked to some people that really work in the industry to get it right. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, fuck, there's like a lot of pressure put on me because my name is tied to this. And suddenly I'm going to be this like representative of this industry. I'm like, I hope I didn't fuck this up somehow, you know? Well, that's all I could say is just like, I have this little nervousness about it. I you know, at the end of the day, I really love the film and I'm going to stand by it. And people, again, are going to think what they think, and you can't really, you know, change people's opinions. But yeah, there is a lot of pressure, I feel.
But along those lines, as we've been very transparent about, this is a movie that is, sure, it's inspired by real life, but it's a fictionalized story, and it's a thriller. So part of what happens in a thriller is kind of the worst case scenario. So in a way, we're dealing with sort of a fictional scenario of, well, how bad could this kind of go? Yeah. And I think people get that they're watching a movie, even if it's inspired by real life.
Yeah, and it's not so much I'm worried about the fictional aspect. That concern has kind of melted away since we've announced this. But just things like, I don't know, like I guess, for instance, with Bonding, people criticize that they didn't talk about consent enough, and there were lots of consent violations and stuff like that. And, you know, in real scenario, you know, DS scenarios, like you negotiate, you establish boundaries, you're clear about, you know, what you're doing and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just hope I don't know. I just hope there's not anything like that in the movie where people are like, come on, that's not how it works.
Yeah, because there's that great quote, which I kind of believe, which is consent is the only taboo.
Right.
Yeah. Which is more or less what like, as long as you've agreed to it, it's all good.
Yeah, I repeat that a lot. That's like a mantra every time BDSM comes up.
It's kind of common sense. And just because you're not into it, it's like, that's fine. That person is into that. That person loves that. Mm-hmm. So,
you know, one thing too that I think separates this from Bonding is like Bonding kind of is like the sense I get from it is that it's supposed to kind of present a portrait of an average dominatrix, just like this is the life of a dominatrix. And that's where it goes wrong, because there's just so much wrong ethically and factually. But this is different because it's not about a typical dominatrix. It's about a unique dominatrix and a unique scenario. So like it's not, I don't feel like it would be misrepresenting anything if something out of the norm happens, because again, it's fiction. So.
Yeah. And I suppose there's always going to be dreary nitpickers.
Hey, you know you've made it when that happens. But look, also, you are a kind of like a mental humiliatrix. You're not an in-person dominatrix. This is very, very different.
Cyber dominatrix, that's what I call it. That's my shorthand for it.
Yeah, that's what I say too.
Yeah. All right, next question. What were some of the cinematic inspirations for this movie? And the listener says it reminds them a lot of Banksy's exit through the gift shop.
Oh, that's awesome. God, I love that movie. Yeah, I think that was kind of maybe one of them, you know.
Well, we talked about a couple of them. Catfish we watched. I'm Still Here. We tried to watch basically movies like that feel like a documentary but have may or may not have like a fictional kind of storyline woven within it. We've always try to avoid the term mockumentary because that's more like Parks and Recreation and The Office. That's
Yeah,
more of, like,
or
a
this is
comedy.
Spinal Tap.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. People have a comic tone in their mind when they hear mockumentary.
Yeah.
We watched all the great, and this is a passé term, but erotic thrillers. Which what do you call that genre? Because it's so wrong to even say erotic thriller. People don't like that, but it's such a great genre. Are you kidding me? Like Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct. These are great movies. Exotica. What a great genre. I mean, if I've made an erotic thriller, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. We watched The Girlfriend Experience. That
Yeah,
was
The
another
Girlfriend
one.
Experience. That was because that was Sasha Grey, playing
A prostitute.
a prostitute. So heavily fictionalized, but kind of, people knew her as a porn star.
Yeah. It kind of it was sort of parallel to what I was doing because I was actually working in this industry and playing a version of myself. So it was good to see. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
I like that movie. No, I think that movie's super strong. And the others I'd say as well were Martin Scorsese's movie After Hours from the 80s, just because it's kind of like a downward descent movie, the kind of one-way trip to hell narrative. And then the other one, actually, Nightcrawler really inspired me. The Jake Gyllenhaal movie. Yeah, just in the sense that it's about this guy who's kind of navigating this seedy underbelly. Very inspired by reality. Very infused with a sense of veracity. That movie inspired me quite a bit, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Next up, Ceara, what was it like acting in the film? And do you think your work experience helped you?
Yeah, and it helped me in the sense that I feel fairly comfortable in front of a camera. I think maybe a lot of people that don't have experience for the camera kind of freeze and automatically act a little awkward or have a different voice. So, I've put out like 1,800 fetish videos so far, and I've done other TV work before, just sort of one-off short docuseries type things. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera, and the style that we mentioned before where I was just kind of able to go with the flow and improvise and just talk like how I would talk. It was pretty simple. I found playing myself really easy. I remember Jonathan Green was really concerned when we first started, and he recommended that maybe I take some acting classes, which, it's fair. Like I didn't really have any experience like that except maybe in high school.
God, and that was nothing against you. It's just literally, I mean, he's looking at people's IMDb pages and going, okay, they've done 20 TV shows, whereas for you, I didn't, I was pitching. I was like, oh, she can do this. And he's like, okay, well, I need to see that. Yeah.
And I agree. It's totally fair. And I was like, well, I'm playing myself. And he said, that's actually harder. And I'm like, okay. It wasn't.
I think it's very individual,
totally,
for some people it would be hard.
Well, I heard, what was it? Jason Mewes was talking about with Kevin Smith when they first put out Clerks, and Jason Mewes plays himself, basically a version of himself. And Kevin Smith was giving him lines like "schnooch to the nooch" or whatever, little sayings that he would actually say. And Jason read it and be like, "What is this?" And he's like, "You say this." He's like, "I do." And he had the hardest time just playing himself. So I think it is individual. For whatever reason, it came pretty easy to me though.
Man,
so
and this is music to me. Is honestly, I'm so proud to hear that it was easy, because I'll tell you, it's almost like maybe I really sheltered you from the process. It's like what would happen is I would write out the script, and somehow just through our process, you would end up doing every line in the script, and you wouldn't have even necessarily read the scene. It's quite incredible how you can actually manifest things as a director, going back to that, okay, this is what I need to get, and you somehow arrive at it. And we got there not through conventional means.
And I guess it speaks to your communication too, because it could be that you just got to know her so well that you intuitively knew how she would say something.
Look, trust is super important. And if I look back at the really early footage, I could tell you're a little bit wary of me. Who is this guy? Is he just a panty sniffer?
Is he even
sleep
recording?
With me?
It's a real camera.
I think at the beginning I was wary of, and I think all sex workers are wary anytime someone from the outside wants to come in and record them, because a lot of times we are depicted as, it's just kind of, we're at a zoo exhibit, or it's like we're
exoticized.
Just exoticized, exactly. we're just, these poor victims or whatever. So I was wary at first about what your intentions were and what direction you were going to go in, but I think we developed trust pretty quickly. And
yeah, and that's always the classic thing, isn't it? Because people are like, well, so, was she abused, or is this? It's like people always want the sad story if it's in the sex industry.
Yeah.
And I recognize there is a lot of that, don't get me wrong. I got my eyes open, but, Yeah.
That story's been told.
It's been told. That's not the story we were trying to tell.
All right. Ceara, did the plot make you reconsider the potential impact of your real-life lifestyle on others?
No.
All right, next.
No, and that's not to say that I haven't thought of that. I've already kind of been through that kind of soul searching before, and this kind of came a little bit later in my career, so I feel like I've already kind of gone through that, and I've thought about some of the more negative impacts that I might have on my clients, and a lot of that has to do with, I think, their own issues. A lot of guys do have impulsive, like maybe addiction problems. Maybe they are spending beyond their means sometimes. I think those guys are in the vast minority. And at the end of the day, I can only just have my own ethical standards and boundaries, and they're grown men. And if they're going to fuck themselves over, they're going to fuck themselves over.
I mean, haven't you sort of said to me a couple of times, because also I'm not just a yes man. I mean, I've kind of really pushed you on this stuff and asked you pretty hard questions through the process of this. Like, are you taking advantage of people? You kind of always said something about, it's like a liquor store. It's like, okay, maybe a certain small minority of people are alcoholics, but does that mean you don't have the liquor store?
Yeah.
I mean, what you do could have harm, but again, it's like, where does your culpability lie? That's
exactly
the whole question.
And I still actually struggle with that a little bit. Like, what is my responsibility here? And, sometimes I do talk to guys that, have like serious problems, and it becomes evident. And, I will, break out a character sometime and be like, look, maybe you need to get some help. Again, that's the vast minority. Most guys are just buying a few of my clips and jerking off or whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker. I'm a humiliatrix. So that's my job. I can only, again, stay within the ethical bounds that I've set up.
It's funny you guys mentioned the liquor store concept, because I had thought about this too when I first learned of this whole industry. It was intriguing, but also like I had these questions like, is this wrong? Just as an industry. And I kind of came to the analogy of like a bartender. A bartender is providing something that people want, and it's up to each individual to consume the product responsibly. And if somebody doesn't, or if they have a problem, the bartender can feel bad and have empathy, but it's not the bartender's fault for supplying it.
Right.
It's just
it's the unintended consequence of social liberty.
Yeah.
But also, it's like there's a sign up that says, we will not serve intoxicated people. I mean, if you come into the bar and you've already had 20 beers, they're allowed to say, dude, you got to leave because you're wasted right now. And that's a little bit like what you're saying. If you really feel someone spiraling, maybe there is a bit of responsibility to say, hey, listen, slow down a bit, dude.
But it gets hard because a lot of these guys, that is their fantasy of like, oh, I'm spending my last dime, I'm dipping into my kid's college fund now. Like you're ruining me. And so and I'm talking to them online. Like, sometimes but most of the time I'm not even looking at their face. So,
yeah.
And this could be a businessman with millions sitting there in his bank, but he's like, I'm down to my last cent. You know what I mean? I'm like...
And at the same time, some guy could send me $100 and maybe he's fucking broke. Right. And that really is the last bit of his money, but it doesn't really mean much to me because it's just $100. So it doesn't seem like he's spending beyond his means. So I just never really know what someone's situation really is.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are playing characters too. In fact, probably most of them, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Next question. What is Julian's honest opinion of the submissive men who are into this kind of kink?
Well, I mean, that's a blanket statement about a lot of people.
Yeah, one thing that I've interjected in other episodes when she and I talk is that she'll refer to broadly her clients as submissive men. And they're not all submissive. And in fact, people who are submissive, I guess some people are universally submissive, but a lot of people, it's like a part-time thing, or they're switches, or they're dominant except sexually, they become submissive, or it could be like any number of different permutations.
Look, the thing I've really learned is that dominance and submission are two sides of the same coin. I mean, in a sense, if you're a submissive guy, you're like, okay, I'm submissive, but you're turned on by her dominance. I mean, it's just you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And frankly, in my life, sure, I've got some probably submissive fantasies, but then really in real life, I'm often the dominant one because that is how it goes, frankly. With women, that's often you know how it ends up.
You know, I've heard that the dominant men tend to smile more often, and if that's the case, then you're in charge of the world.
I'm an alpha, baby.
I don't think I've ever seen you without even just like at least a little bit of a smile.
Oh,
yeah.
My mom said
cheerful
that.
person.
Yeah.
God, I think you need it, dude, in this industry. If you're trying to be an actor or director, I mean, it's just like banging your head against a wall for years and years and years. But eventually the wall breaks, and I've seen that with friends. And it's the ones who do just keep going and persevere, and, you know, they get there.
Yeah.
So, look, submissive men, I think that's great. Like I said, if you're not hurting anyone, if there's consent, man, all power to you. Human sexuality, it's a rainbow. It's a spectrum. I mean, it's fascinating and awesome, you know? Like,
It makes people interesting.
it makes people interesting.
Yeah.
So, thumbs up, submissive men.
I wonder if this was a humiliation fiend who submitted this hoping you would call him a beta or something.
Probably.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah, he sounds like a
it actually
pathetic
it
cuck.
was.
Oh,
I can
yeah?
confirm that.
Nice.
Yeah,
All
he had
right.
another question that I took out, which was basically saying, Julian, you have such a chiseled physique. What do you think about, you know, your these guys that aren't as hot as you, or something like that? But it was a very veiled cuck question, and I was like, all right, yeah, you're not jerking off to this podcast.
Slipping one in under the radar.
Well, they're losers, and someone like Ceara
Sure.
would only be interested in a real man like myself. It's
How
pretty
nice of
obvious.
you. What a nice indulgence.
There you go, guys.
Before the lightning round, I have a couple questions of my own if we have time, which I think we do.
We can do it.
So I'm curious. I like to, and Ceara can attest to this, I like to have ideas and then tend not to execute. I don't know, 99.9% of them. And some of them are creative, some of them are business, some are technical. I am curious, what is your experience? Let me try to be more specific. Do you have any advice that stands out as either something you discovered that was surprising, that helped you either making documentaries or with writing? Those are the two things I'm most curious about, or both.
Like how to kind of help you through that long process?
Yeah, because there's a lot of advice out there, and like anything, not all the advice is going to stick. So is there anything, like in writing, one of the things I hear the most is building a routine is usually the most common thing I've heard from most writers. So like, is that something that you did, or is there some other trick, or are you just a natural?
No, I mean, I'm not sure that I really have a fixed routine, and especially because I will jump between writing, directing, editing, acting. So there's not like a fixed time of day I do it or anything like that.
You seem like a high energy person.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Do you exercise a lot?
I do exercise a lot.
Okay.
I meditate a lot. And it's funny, actually, this year I haven't been drinking, and I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't actually have a problem with alcohol. It's something I just wanted to do because I was just loving how it felt. In fact, I think I was doing a photo shoot with you, and I didn't drink for a month just to get nice and svelte. And then I was like, damn, I'm going to keep this going. Look, here's what I will tell you. If you're a creative person like yourself, you have extreme sensitivity, and that is your biggest strength. It's also a liability. It's also what can slow you down in the process. But be aware of that, guard that, treasure that. I'm a very sensitive person. I put a lot of work into my mental health. That's how I can do these projects and spend years on it, because I really take the time to look after myself.
So really what works for you seems to be you have a solid baseline, just keeping yourself functional and operational.
Yeah, and it's funny, like the film, you know, I guess it's like I probably look like a total hot mess in the film Use Me, and it seems like this chaotic journey, and I mean, it's the most in control I've ever been of a production, you know? And in order to kind of go to those headspaces while I'm acting, it's like, to let go, I have to be so in control. I have to have such sure footing. Do you know what I mean?
Do you stick to like a certain diet or sleep schedule or anything like that?
No. In fact, I have terrible insomnia. But on the other hand, I get some of my best ideas at night. I just try to get enough sleep each week. I love to exercise. And I stretch a lot more now. That really that helps me.
Like yoga or just like general?
I do yoga. I started doing DDP yoga, which is kind of, it's
What's
this
that?
ex-wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page. He's got this like yoga for like dudes who would never do yoga, is how I would describe it. That was super helpful.
Interesting.
And stretching. You know, I read Tom Brady's book. He's all about, I fell in love with Tom Brady since I moved here. I know
That's
people
a
hate
sports
him.
ball player, right?
That's a sports ball
Just
player.
kidding. I actually know who that one is.
But he's all about stretching and,
Yeah.
you know, and look, the dude's 41 and he just won a Super Bowl. He's my aging goals.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, look after your body.
He must have some good advice for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's the last. What?
Well, I have a question, actually. This is like a serious question. So I am flying my family out to the premiere so they can
Aw.
see it. And I'm just wondering, How are you telling your mom about the sexier scenes in the movie? Are you just not telling her anything? Are you telling her to maybe close her eyes at certain parts? Because I feel like I need to tell my parents that, and it's kind of an awkward conversation.
It's a great question. Look, my mom always took me to, she took me to, pretty grown-up movies from a young age.
See, my parents were the opposite.
Okay.
They really shield me from that sort of thing. You see how well I turned out because of it.
Didn't you say you weren't allowed to watch the Smurfs as a kid?
Well, yeah. Well, that was a religious thing.
Oh,
that was
okay.
because it was demonized.
I thought it was because of all the topless girls.
What?
No,
They all just wear those weird little diaper things. Anyway, go on.
Well, most of them are boys. Anyways, doesn't matter. So yeah, anytime we'd watch a movie and they didn't realize oh no, there's a sex scene, they would shut my eyes. They'd put their hand over my eyes. So it's kind of funny. I feel like this is coming full circle where I'm gonna be like, you guys have to kind of maybe shut your eyes. The thing is, they know what I do for a living. That sort of stuff doesn't really bother me, but you know what I'm talking about. There's some sexier.
There is some sexy stuff in this movie.
So, and I feel like they maybe don't want to see their daughter like that. So,
I would probably just say it's coming up here. There's a couple bits in the film where maybe for 30 seconds you're just going to close your eyes and I'm just going to squeeze your arm and maybe you just want to look down for that bit. That's
so
all
you think I should sit next to them and warn them?
God, that's even more awkward.
Give them an alarm clock that goes off at the exact moment.
Yeah.
And they'll shut their eyes.
You could tell them what happens right before any of the sexy
Okay,
moments,
that's a good idea.
All
right.
But actually, the second one in the film really comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's true.
As for my family, look, it's they are cool with it. And I've done, sex scenes before in films. It's just...
So it's not an issue with you?
They know how hard I work. They know it's just...
It's kind of funny that it's this is an issue for me, but not for you.
I know, right? But it's sort of maybe they're more used to the process of films and that, it is kind of make-believe and,
Right.
what actually goes into a sex scene. And sometimes there's the crew there and it's actually that light looks bad on Julian's ass. Let's move the light. It's not hot.
Right.
Yeah.
Although ours was pretty raw.
Pretty sexy.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, since you said you've done this before, so I'm sure it's the first time you have this conversation is probably the hardest.
Exactly. Look, I think
Should I just text him? Should I tell him in real life? I don't know. I think I might text him. I'll
Anything
text him.
that's
I
you're
love
not
that you're so
sure-
nervous about
I
this.
really am. I'm like, oh, God.
I feel like with a lot of stuff, if I'm not sure how to approach it because it's awkward, I usually default to texting unless it's something that's so sensitive that it would be offensive to handle it in a text, dumping someone or something like that.
Right,
But
right.
something like this, I would just
text,
put it
give
in
him a
text.
heads up.
Yeah, like I came out to my family as bisexual last year, and I don't think any of them knew that. Some of them might have guessed. Who knows? But I did it through text 100%. I was just actually, no, I told my mom on the phone because we were already just chatting. So.
Yeah,
But
and
text, it gives people time to process it, too,
Yeah, and it
right?
gives you time to phrase it in a way that you can review, make sure you're getting the key points across, not taking the wrong tone or something. So yeah,
I mean, yeah, I guess I just don't want him to be super blindsided by it, even though the trailer kind of shows, things get sexy, so I don't think they're going to be totally shocked. But
Yeah, you're slowly breaking them into the idea.
yeah, well, yeah, I just don't, I don't want them to see something that they're like, fuck, I can't unsee that now.
yeah, and I mean, look, if you look at it from the other side, or I don't know about you, but for me personally, if any of my family members did some kind of sexy movie stuff, I would want a heads up because I don't want to see it. It's not
Right.
if I did see it, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's just sex, and that's something that I try actively to get more comfortable with on an ongoing basis. Having said that, I would prefer a heads up. That would be a courtesy to me because it's not for you, really. It's for them.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I might be, it's probably not as bad to see your child in that situation than a child is to see their parents in that situation,
Yeah.
If it were the roles were reversed,
Yeah, I guess so.
I definitely don't want to see a sex scene with my mom or my dad.
Right. Yeah.
But okay. All right. Should we move on?
Yeah, so it's lightning round time, so do you want to take over?
Oh, do I have to read the lightning round questions?
Yeah, I already told you I'm not reading this prurient garbage. This is
So
a
what-
classy show.
Is this from the Insta DMs? I
Yeah.
couldn't believe you opened your Instagram DMs. I was like, no one is going to ask you serious questions that way.
Yeah.
She's probably used to
Well, it
some
is
scandalous DMs.
Okay.
So this is Ask Me Anything.
It
so
is Ask Me
here we
Anything.
go.
Okay.
Be real, Julian. Do you like toes?
Not all toes, but on the right woman, absolutely. No, there's only one woman whose toes I like. That's my partner.
That is a great answer. Not all toes.
No, I mean...
Hashtag not all toes.
Right. I
not
mean,
all toes.
I mean, there might be someone out there who has a fetish for all toes, but probably not. Really.
How does Julian like to finish?
Strongly.
Explosively.
All right. How big is Julian's dick?
Well, I shouldn't answer that. What do you think?
Oh, so big.
Perfect.
Have you ever done a threesome? I have.
I know you have. Look, in my younger days, I had one that was set up and ready to go, and then it got cancelled at the last minute.
Damn.
Because it was that time of the month.
Classic.
My time of the month.
Right. That's I assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you kick my balls? I don't know who this is for.
I'm pretty sure
No.
that one's for you. But yeah, I'll do it for the right price. Sure.
All right, cool. Have you ever given Ceara a foot rub?
I don't think so. No.
No, it never
No.
happened. Ceara, what kind of tube socks do you like? I don't know. I couldn't even name one brand of tube socks.
But what about like design? Do you have like a preference for colors or
No.
patterns
I
or
don't
something?
fucking care.
Just say Argyle.
Argyle? No. It'd have to be the stripes, like the soccer
Horizontal
style.
stripes near the top. All right,
Yeah,
there you
near
go.
the
I made
top.
you answer the question.
God
That's a
damn.
trick.
Someone
All
is
right.
That was
fapping
my
so
question.
hard right now.
that was
That's
Kevin's
me.
one.
Oh, was that it? Okay, good. Oh, I survived it. Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't
Okay.
too bad.
That wasn't too bad.
Wow.
But dude, I mean, I can only imagine what you get. I mean, the DMs that I just get
Oh,
from
yeah.
people, and it's not like I'm even like a sexy on camera kind of guy. I mean,
Well,
boy,
give yourself some more credit than that.
thanks, but
Not full time is what you
not
mean.
full time.
Right. Not every day.
But Instagram, it's funny. I mean, we're in this world now that's just all about kind of being hot,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not enough for me. I know some people just want to be a social media star. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I think of Instagram like gummy bears. It's like you look at it for a couple of seconds, it makes you smile. It's like a little hit of sugar, but
Yeah.
you still want to do things like a movie, which is more like, broccoli and a nice roast steak and potatoes, something a bit more filling.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I'm just saying,
Well,
Yeah, basically, people on Instagram are shallow, I think. Is what
I
they're
love
saying.
Instagram. Don't get me wrong. I just need a bit more than that. It's
Yeah.
instant gratification.
I have mixed feelings about Instagram, and I was just thinking about it this morning because this was one of the first mornings in probably weeks that I've managed to wake up and get out of bed before checking Instagram, which was like an achievement. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings, partly because I work in tech, and a lot of it's creative tech work. So like I need to know what's going on with the key apps and what are they doing that works and doesn't work and all that. But also Instagram is a very well-designed piece of software.
Yeah.
It has some flaws here and there, but it's pretty phenomenal overall. And I find it can really, like any other tool or social media or anything, it can be very beneficial if you can manage it. But
Yeah.
if you just let it run roughshod over you, it'll fuck you up,
Dude, and self-care is important. I'm trying to not check it all the time because also it is people's highlight reel, and it's like someone might be saying, hey, we're having a premiere in New York, and they might be going through a breakup and they're having a shitty morning. That's the first thing they see, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm not having a premiere in New York. And I know because I've been that person, seeing someone's happy news when I'm having a shitty day, and I'm like, fuck, that actually makes me feel kind of shit about myself.
Yeah,
I wish I was
that
doing
is-
what they were doing.
That is kind of one of the big pitfalls of social media in general, is it tends to make people feel inadequate.
Yeah.
One of the things I just realized recently, so like a few months ago, they updated their algorithms or something, and they did a really good job. It took them a few attempts, because I'm assuming it took them a few attempts, because like one day I noticed that I started getting suggestions for all these accounts that were just all these women that I found very attractive. Normally, if I see a bunch of attractive women on Instagram, I don't personally find them like quite my type. There's always something a little off or whatever. It's just like any selection of women. It's just not all your flavor, I guess. But something changed, and suddenly it was like 90% accurate. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. And then I immediately started worrying, because I'm like, now you're just...
They know what your type is.
Well,
Right.
yeah, and I don't care that they know, but I don't want them putting it in front of me all day, because it's like a dopamine drip that you can't turn off.
That's a thing, and actually, like porn on Insta. I mean, even though you can't really be naked, but I mean, look, even some of your stuff. I mean, sometimes I'm just on the bus, and of course, I follow all your social media. And it's like this picture of her ass in my face, and I'm sitting on a bus. It's like,
Yeah.
God, I want to keep following you, but it's like, it's, but it's like crazy. Like you just get that in the middle of your day. Like here's
Yeah.
just a bit of porn while you're on the bus.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, wow,
And I found, too, that Instagram can
It's even worse on Twitter, because they actually let porn on.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that Instagram and other stuff can also desensitize me, not just to sex stuff, but also I started following a lot of stoicism accounts. So like I like to see quotes about stoicism that kind of remind me to be mindful throughout the day. But then I realized at a certain point that I'm doing less actual work to maintain my mental health, because it's like a pseudo, it's like a veneer that I have through Instagram. It's like, oh, I'll just like this quote from Seneca, which means I have inner peace.
Yeah,
And then-
I'm a more spiritual person.
Right, because I liked it. Oh, I'll follow that Stoic account. Look at how spiritual I am.
Yeah.
But really, it's just like it's diluting it. And if I took all the time I added up on Instagram and devoted 1/10 of that to meditating, that's a real difference. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to keep playing in the digital world and see what's coming next, but not get lost in it.
It's complex. And look, at the end of the day, they've gamified it. They've got us hooked. They've got us addicted. To me, Instagram really reminds me of poker machines. Very similar. It's kind of the same reward mechanisms. I think your brain kind of gets flooded.
Yeah.
Even things where like they'll flash an image and then make it disappear. And then you have to scroll through your feed to get to it. There's a lot of little tricks they do cognitively to hook you. I don't know what we can do. The technology apocalypse is here, and it's...
I will say it may be turning around. Like the latest iOS has a function to track your screen time and to lock apps after a certain limit. So, hopefully we're getting better about it. I don't know. Who's to say? Anyway, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yes.
And it was really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the final cut of the film. Do you guys have like a film website or something?
You can go to useme.movie.
Nice.
To check out it. Right now, it'll take you straight to the information on the Brooklyn Film Festival. So if anyone wants to go to that, that's there. Right now, as we're recording this is the first and only date we have. So people who want to know when they can see it, if they can't make it there, we'll have more information on that when we work it out.
Yeah, and we're hoping these screenings will lead to that and lead to a wider release. It's got to do a bit of a festival run first to allow us to get that wider release. But... we're working on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any public social medias to tell the world about, or a website or anything?
Yeah, sure, I guess. I think, it's pretty much at Julian R. Shaw, or I should say Julian R. Shaw.
Very
So
good.
that's
Very
much
good.
better. I was going to say isn't a letter.
I just do the American accent all the time now.
You're
It's
an
so much
American.
easier.
Yeah.
People aren't like, what?
Yeah. So yeah, Julian R. Shaw on
Yeah.
Instagram. I'm pretty active on that. I do like Instagram.
Yeah, and you
it.
can follow the movie like on Twitter, Instagram. It's Use Me Movie.
Use Me Movie
Yep.
at Use Me Movie.
And
Yeah.
Shaw is SHAW.
Shaw SHAW.
Got it. And our podcast website is standardpodcast.com for those of you who care.
I don't know. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you, Julian.
Thanks, guys. That was such a pleasure. Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.